The 8 others say, no, Captain, we ain't leaving you. If you're going down, we're going down with you. So that's what happens to the other 15 planes. And Doolittle's Raid, physically, doesn't really do much. Like, it's not really a big deal. But the psychological impact on Japan, you couldn't measure it. Wait a minute, what happened? How did they get here? Who attacked us? Where did they come from? Do they have a secret base? Do they have more carriers? And the morale back in the United States. This is March. It gets a boost. Pearl Harbor was barely 3 months ago. And yeah, we got back at Japan. We did it. All right? And the Imperial Army, Hideki Tojo, is embarrassed. The Emperor's like, Tojo, you said this would happen. You know, it's not my fault, it's Yamamoto. Yamamoto's like, what? I'm the one who told you idiots this was the stupidest idea anyway. Well, if you would have finished him off at Pearl Harbor, it's your fault. And so Yamamoto is forced to apologize to the Emperor. He had been begging upon begging for a showdown. He goes, if we don't get them quick, if we let the Americans gain traction, it's over. Didn't get them at Pearl Harbor. Coral Sea is going to be a draw. And now Doolittle's Raid, this is crazy. So the Emperor says, fine, Yamamoto, you want a showdown, you plan it, you lead it, and you finish them off. But back to Doolittle's 80 or so crewmen. We know 5 of them are interred by the Russians. The other ones, you can see the list. 62 are mercifully picked up and smuggled by Japanese civilians, hidden away, and taken to over into India, Thailand, or even down into different embassies in Shanghai. 1 is killed in his parachute. He is shot. 4 are going to wind up drowning. They're going to land in rice paddies and drown. And several others are captured. Of the 8 who are captured, 3 officers are tried and convicted of war crimes. I got a photo of one right over here above Doc Leach. And it is one of the captains getting beheaded. So 3 of them are beheaded for war crimes. One of the guys who makes it is Doolittle. And he gets to the embassy, there's secret code. He sends mission successful. Raid was a success. And President Roosevelt was kind of trying to listen to this on the radio. Remember, there's no TV, there's no cell phones, people are listening what's going on. And when he hears this, he does something that I think is kind of funny. He just kind of did it on inspiration. He goes on the radio and tells the American people that the Empire of Japan was attacked. Combined forces of the United States Navy and Army combined, united together to go take on the Empire of Japan. And to be clever, he said, our Army planes took off from our secret naval base on Shangri-La. Japanese like, Shangri-La? Where's Shangri-La? Like, this is the Pacific. It's ours, man. Where the heck is this? So they spend hours and hours, thousands of dollars, crisscrossing the Pacific trying to find Shangri-La. All right, so Doolittle's Raid is a success. Man, we got this rolling. But now everybody's mad. Especially Yamamoto. He's bitter, he's humiliated. Everybody's telling me to do this. It's not a good idea. And it comes up to Midway. And Admiral Nimitz here is under just a great amount of stress. He's having these killer headaches. The president is saying, come on, after Doolittle, we got to follow it up. And he's like, with what? All right? We're raising my ships out of the harbor. The Yorktown is sunk. I only got the Hornet and the Enterprise. You know, we're doing that Coral Sea. I'm working on it, man. But no, we don't have time. You got to get going. And the Japanese, luckily, start to fall victim to hubris. Right? We've been winning. Americans, they got lucky. All right, they bombed us. Didn't really not a lot happen. But you know what? Now is the time for them to feel the full might of the Empire of Japan. And Yamamoto lays out this plan. And he's a smart guy, and he's very similar to, like, General Eisenhower will realize this early in North Africa. He's, you know, I'm not going to compare him to George McClellan, but you get some guys who, when they form a battle plan, like A's got to go to B, and B's got to go to C, and C's got to go to D, and if everything works out like I draw it up, it's going to work perfectly. But some commanders can't handle the ebb and flow of battle. When things don't go according to plan, they panic. Best example that we've drawn out of the Civil War was fighting Joe Hooker in Chancellorsville. If Lee and Jackson stay exactly where I want them to, I'll sneak around behind them and crush them. And then, wait a minute, Jackson's here. Jackson's not supposed to be here. Well, it doesn't matter, sir, we're beating him. But wait a minute, he's not supposed to be here. Everybody, hold up, we're going to stop. What for we're winning? Well, because it's not my plan. That is going to happen to Admiral Yamamoto. Things he plans don't work. And that's because I tell my daughters, my wife is like, why do you got to tell them these things? And I'm like, well, because. I'm like, ladies, when you choose somebody to date a nerd. And they're like, why? You mean like a pocket protector? Like, yeah, date Poindexter. Why? Because Poindexter will have a job. Oh. All right, he's going to have a job. You better than a plan. All right, he's going to have a job. All right, all right. Date smart guys. All right, you know they're gonna have jobs. All right. So anyway, Roxanne, remember I said that. So anyhow, all right. So we're going to have, we want, and so Yamamoto is going to divide his forces. A third of his force is going to go up here, way up to the Aleutian Islands. And this is kind of funny. I don't watch it anymore, but when it first came out, Deadliest Catch about the Dutch Harbor ice fishermen, I watch Discovery Channel, all right, Curse of Oak Island. I don't care if they're not going to find anything. I like to watch it anyway. All right, so, I'm like, you're watching that dumb show, dear? It's an hour. Just give me my hour, all right? All right. So anyway, the Dutch Harbor ice fishermen are out hunting. And the Japanese force kind of lands in Dutch Harbor. Like, what the hell are those Japanese guys doing down there? So they go and take a look, and some shots are exchanged. The Japanese are chasing the Dutch Harbor ice fishermen, and they lure them back into this canyon. The Japanese soldiers come in, they dynamite the sides and cause an avalanche. All right, so don't mess with the ice fishermen. They're like, look, we're going to go catch crab on Bering Sea. Don't think you scare me in my own backyard, so avalanche this. So, all right, that is a part of the fleet up here. The main part is going to head for Midway Island. And here's where the smart guy comment comes in. We have a mathematician, brilliant guy. Everybody's got their brilliant guys. Alan Turing over in Bletchley Park is doing incredible things, breaking the Enigma machine code, if you've seen The Imitation Game. Well, in the Japanese Pacific Theater, for the United States, we got John Roquefort. And Roquefort breaks the Japanese code. And they're like, are you sure? He's like, yeah, I'm a mathematician. It's math. All right, 2 + 2 is 4. I don't know what this Common Core crap says, but I know the answer, my God, is 4. All right, whatever it is, the result is 4. And they're like, are you 100%? He's like, well, 99. Well, can you make sure? He's like, all right. And he comes up with this brilliant thing known as Roquefort's ruse. And it's so simple that there's no way it's so easy, no one will think that it's fake. They send out a plane with sealed orders to Midway Island and a couple smaller ones, and each base commander unseals the order, and it says at such and such time, we'll say like Wake Island, radio back that your generator is busted. It's corroded and it doesn't work and you don't have electricity, and shut out all your lights. Right? Guam, let's say. You're going to radio that you've got a giant sinkhole in your runway. No planes can land and take off. You're out of commission. Midway, next day later, you're going to radio that your saltwater distillation plant is busted. You've got no fresh water. You're going to scream it to high heaven that you've got no fresh water. And we wait, and we wait, and we wait, and we intercept a Japanese communique that says Island X has no fresh water. Repeat, Island X has no fresh water. Their distillation tank is busted. Bam! I told you I broke their code. They're coming for Midway. And Midway is told to prepare. And this is one of those great stories. If anybody knows Jane McMurray, graduated a couple years ago, her uncle just retired as the Commander-in-Chief of the Naval Pacific Forces. And when I told her this story, she called him and he sent me a picture. I should have put it in here. Behind his desk in Pearl Harbor is Nimitz's original notes for the battle plan that he used for Midway. And according to his diary and, a couple other interviews, he's been having these headaches. His head is killing him. He's like, oh, God. And he goes into his office and he just needs a few minutes to relax. And to relax, because he's a smart guy, we'll call him a nerd, all right? You're going to graduate from Annapolis and not be smart. He reaches up behind him and grabs his old Naval Academy history book and he plunks it down and it just miraculously opens to the third and big, one of the final battles of the Greek wars against Persia. When, after defeating Leonidas and Leonidas at Thermopylae, the Persian and Xerxes come straight for Athens, and there's no Athenians. And the Athenian admiral Themistocles had pulled the people back to the small island of Salamis, put a few ships in the narrow straits as bait, and the other ships were behind it. Now the Persian ships were big and slow and lumbering, and they didn't know how treacherous and shallow the straits of Salamis were, where the Athenian boats were swift and nimble. And as the Persians came in, Themistocles unleashed his men. On board were Spartan Marines, hearing that their great king had just been killed, and it's a massacre. And he's reading that, and all of a sudden, God, what? Can I not get 5 minutes? Admiral, you got to get out here. Did you just let me finish? I love this stuff. No, you got to get out here. Yeah! And he walks out, what? And they're like, look, coming around the bend in Pearl Harbor was the USS Yorktown. Is that the Yorktown? Everyone thought it was sunk. Well, the captain went crazy daring after the ship was damaged. As everyone was focused on the Lexington, which sinks, operating on one of its 4 boilers, the captain goes way down below the fancy islands, Fiji, Tonga, where they film like the Survivor show, goes way down here in the middle of nowhere, French Polynesia, way up and around, down here where there's absolutely nothing. On his skeleton crew, guys were starving, dehydrated, they were burning furniture to power the last steam engine, and they make it back to Pearl. And Nimitz is like, hot dog. And he said, bam! He has an epiphany. His headache goes away. He's just read Salamis. If it worked once, it might just work twice. This is perfect. And he turns to the harbor master, Chief, yeah, based on what you can see, how long is it going to take to fix the Yorktown? Oh, 90 days. I mean, that's not getting aboard, just taking a little, look-see. Okay, great, you got 72 hours. What? Sir, I didn't say 70, 90 hours, I said 90 days. Yeah, I heard you. You got 72 hours. What? It's not possible. Yeah, it is. You just tell me what you need. When that thing gets in here, get everybody off except maintenance crews, engine repairmen, pilots, and their freight crews. Everybody else is off. And around the Hawaiian Islands, every contractor, every carpenter, plumber, electrician, welder, pipe fitter, anybody that could work in the trades was said, hey, could you volunteer to go aboard the Yorktown? And the guys who didn't volunteered or were voluntold, all right, MPs, SPs, Honolulu police, guys get aboard. 70 hours later, the Yorktown is operable again. They welded big patches over the holes in the hull. They've got new boards for the runway. 3 of the 4 boilers are up and running. It wasn't great, but it was just good enough. And because of Roquefort, Nimitz has got this plan. God, can we do this in 8 or 9 minutes? Can we go like 5, 6 minutes over? If you guys got to leave, go ahead. I got a little bit carried away. The Yorktown is going to be the bait. It's going to be the small Athenian ships in the Straits of Salamis. But it's got to get there early because the Japanese are going to send scout submarines ahead to check the place out. And he wants them to see the Yorktown, which they thought they sunk, but he wants it to look kind of like junky and, you know, kind of barely afloat. So it gets there. The Yorktown gets to Midway 2 hours before the Japanese scout submarines show up. And when the Yorktown shows up, that is the first thing that throws off Yamamoto's plan. He didn't have the variable of the Yorktown being there. Now that it's there, what do we do? The other thing he did, because he didn't want anyone to know what he was up to, he had all the radio antennas lowered from his ships. They've got to go radio silent. Guy's like, well, what are we doing that for? Well, I don't want the planes to run into them when we take off and land. And the guys were like, okay, but wait a minute, aren't they up when we take off and land all the time? Just shut up and do what you're told. So, the scout submarine sees this, and he intercepts 187 flash messages. The flash messages, urgent, urgent, urgent. They're burning up the airways between Pearl Harbor and Midway. He's like, these Americans are up to something. But he can't call back to the Armada because they're radio silent. And so this is one of the great stories of, you know, just common guys just doing incredible things. Here we have a little Coast Guard PBY flying boat. And it's flown by a little guy named Jack Reed, Ensign Jack Reed. Flying out of Midway were these little patrol boats that could land and take off in the water. And they were spotter planes. They fly really slow and they just put along. And guys would fly like 700 miles out, turn and go like 100 miles north and like a pie wedge, and then back. And they fanned out over the Pacific to look for the Japanese fleet. It's a boring job. There's clouds, there's blue Pacific. And so Jack Reed's little trick was he would take a novel with him. He would take 2 ham and 2 turkey sandwiches and 2 thermoses of coffee. On the way out, he would eat 2 of the sandwiches and he would drink a full thermos of coffee. And he said he would do that because it would get so boring, he would have to pee really bad. And if he could hold it until he made it back, it would help keep him awake and focused as he would drink his other 2 sandwiches. Okay? It was my boy's thing. I don't know. He would eat another ham, another turkey, and if he didn't have to go, he would drink that second thermos of coffee, and he's ready to rock and roll. Well, he has just got out there and turned on his northbound leg, and the clouds part, and he looks down and is like, holy, what? Oh my God. And he looks down and he sees 2/3 of the Japanese Navy. Battleship, destroyer, frigate, submarine, and the 4 big, brand spanking new Japanese aircraft carriers. 4 of the 6 that attacked Pearl Harbor. The Akagi, the Kaga, the Hiru, and the Soaru. And he's like, oh man, if I radio, they're going to know I'm here. I can't outrun the little kid on a tricycle, so I'm going to die. He's like, but no choice. Strawberry 9, this is Ensign Jack Reed. I am at these coordinates. Repeat, I've spotted the entire Jap Navy. Repeat, Ensign Jack Reed, Strawberry 9, entire Jap Navy, 4 carriers coming right for Midway. And as he looked down, he saw 2 silver specks shoot off the runway. He goes, 2 zeros are coming after me, but I made the call. If they didn't hear it, I did my thing. And he looks behind him, and he sees a big, giant thundercloud coming. He's like, well, can't really outrun him, so he turns and he goes into the storm clouds. He's being buffeted around, and he's like, sooner or later I'm going to pop out the other side of this thing, and the speed of the fighter planes is going to catch up to me. So you know what? We're going to just roll the dice here. He turns and he banks deeper into the cloud and goes back towards the Japanese fleet. And as he does, the fighter planes keep zooming through the cloud and he comes out behind him. A couple hours later, he turns and he looked way below him, 2 silver streaks, low on gas, heading back to their ships. But Reed, who is almost on empty, like on fumes, makes it back to Midway. And the problem is the Yorktown. They see the Yorktown, man, we thought we sunk that thing. Well, by God, it's barely afloat, let's finish it off. And so June 4th, all right, 1942, is the big, this whole thing, June 4th, 5th, and 6th, think of like, D-Day, 2 years early. The Japanese attack Midway. And as they're blowing up the runway, they spot the Yorktown, like, hey, the Yorktown is here. What should we do? And the plan was to land with high altitude bombs, blow up Midway, land, rearm, and then hit it again. Well, on their way back, Chichi-Nagumo says, you know what? If you bombed Midway, rearm yourselves with torpedoes. Right? Rearm, refuel, and you guys, the second wave, attack the Yorktown. We're going to, instead of having 2 attack runs, we're going to have 3. And so on deck were these high altitude bombs. And what is just a crime in naval standards, an aircraft carrier deck is the most dangerous place everywhere. You've got props, nowadays you've got jet engines, you've got fuel, you've got cables, you've got ropes. If you don't know what you're doing, the air boss is like in total command, because everything's got to be choreographed, and you never, ever, ever, ever leave ordnance on a deck that you're not going to use. If something happens, kaboom! You take it down into a hold and you lock it away. Well, you know what? You guys land, rearm, and go back. We'll bring up other planes, we'll fuel them up, and reload the high altitude bombs on them. Well, sir, you don't want us to take them down below deck? No. Nothing's going to happen. It's only going to take like 10, 12, 15 minutes. Don't worry. Don't waste the time. We're fine. And so the planes land. They're rearming and they're getting ready to take back off. And that is exactly what Nimitz wanted to have happen. While planes are being refueled and armaments are being switched out, there's the Yorktown as she rolls back into Pearl Harbor, not looking real good there. When that happens, Nimitz springs his trap. 160 miles on the other side of Midway, he had the Enterprise and the Hornet hiding. Now, the story in Japan goes that there was a scout plane that was going to be launched, and it was going to fly, its flight path was going to take it directly over the Enterprise and the Hornet. But some mechanical problem developed and it never takes off. So as the Japanese planes are bombing the Yorktown, and they go back in to land, now low on gas, waiting for their buddies to take off, here comes all the planes from the Enterprise and the Hornet, and a lot of them from the Yorktown. And they're just, sharks smelling blood in the water. At 10:13 a.m., Chichi-Nagumo radios, surprise, successful, we're winning. We got this in the bag. And all of a sudden, hey, what's that? Oh man, here come the Americans. Problem, some of the fighter guys got really excited. Knowing the Japanese planes were low on fuel, they started shooting them. And they were supposed to be escorting these old World War I Dauntless dive bombers piloted by a guy named John Walton. He and 15 other planes, 2-man planes, this old, slow, with a torpedo on them, they're like 130 some miles per hour. And in order to drop their bomb, they have to nosedive straight over and then pull up parallel to the water, drop their torpedo, and then gain altitude, and they're slow. And their torpedoes were so old and so slow, a lot of times Japanese ships could maneuver out of their way. Well, John Walton has no escort. And if you ever see pictures, God, where is it? Here is an old 50 caliber machine gun shell. And on it is this little black sticky stuff. It's phosphorus, all right? So every army had them. Every 5th shot, it would burn like red, blue, green, so you could see where you were shooting. If this thing would hit a human being, you would disintegrate. These things are used to take down aircraft. Well, if you ever see videos of like Midway and John Walton attacking, the sky is full of tracer rounds. Keep in mind that's only 20% of the ordnance in the air at the time. And Walden's guys say, well, Captain, what are we going to do? Well, boys, we're going to do our jobs. And he noses his plane over, and all 15 guys follow him. They drop their torpedoes, and as they pull up, they're just shredded. Every single plane is shot down. Only 3 guys from the attack are going to survive. And John Walden and his men are an enormous sacrifice. But so intent are the gunners at strafing John Walden's planes, they don't look up. And at 10:15, 10:13, Chichi Nagumo says, hey man, we're winning. The naval war is about to be over. 102 American planes show up. There's no defenses. The earlier planes were shot down and running out of fuel. The other group hadn't launched, and they're sitting ducks. 13 minutes later, the Empire of the Rising Sun is defeated. The war claims 4 large, big aircraft carriers. From 20,000 feet, the bombs are dropped, the Akagi catches fire and becomes a raging inferno, and then it explodes and disintegrates. All that ordnance, all that aviation fuel is gone. The Kaga is hit by 4 bombs, it turns into a raging fire. The Hiru has its planes bombing the Yorktown. It turns and heads out, and the Suru is sank as well. Within 13 minutes, 3 of the 4 large aircraft carriers, one's sunk, one's disintegrated, and one is burning so hot it's boiling the sea around it. It's over. Planes from the Yorktown, who are mad, chase the Hiru down. An hour later, they catch it and sink it. It is a brutal and a swift end to one of the most important battles of all of World War II. Whole thing smoking, rubble, boiling the sea. God, that's just hot. When it's all said and done, the United States is going to lose 301 soldiers killed, and we lose 147 planes. It's not without loss. But the Empire of Japan will not only lose 4 aircraft carriers, 400 planes, but all those highly trained pilots. These are the top gun guys that bombed Pearl Harbor. And all of the aircrew mechanics and 3,500 of the very best soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines, that the Empire of Japan had. In 13 minutes, or an hour and 13 minutes, they're all gone. And what this means is definitive. Japan, that 18 to 24 months of offensive action where they're going to conquer everything they want, by June of 42, it's done. They're going to resist. They're going to defend. I told you about that guy in 1974. He hung on to 1974, but now they can't win. It's not going to be easy. It's going to be very long. It's going to be very bloody, as we will see on Guadalcanal and New Britain and Rabaul and Tarawa and all the way on up. But the outcome in the Pacific is just a matter of time. And this pits Americans. You have guys like Ernest J. King, who doesn't like England, who says, no, let's focus all of our forces on the Pacific. And Churchill's going like, yeah, but Roosevelt's like, my buddy Churchill, you know, if Japan is only a matter of time, we need to divert things because England has been existing with the knife at her throat long enough. We got to do something to help our ally. So the victory at Midway allows us to pursue what some don't like but is necessary, the Germany First policy. So it's quick, it's swift, it's brutal, but by June of 42, the war is now, it's a long way from finished, but Japan is done. The only other thing it does, before we get to Guadalcanal, we can't do that one, is MacArthur and Nimitz, as Patton and Montgomery are squaring off in Europe, MacArthur wants to go from Australia and draw a straight line back to Japan. And guys are like, well, I know you want to get the Philippines back, but that's going to cost a lot of lives. And Nimitz says, no, let's go out in an arc and let's island hop. Let's go 300, 400, 500 yards or miles ahead, and anybody trapped in between, that's their problem. One is a Navy guy, one is an Army guy. Each wants Roosevelt to back him. And Roosevelt says, well, boys, I don't know who's right, so why don't you guys go to it and we'll find out together. So the Army-Navy rivalry, remember way back the baseball game was going to be played because Nimitz and MacArthur thought the Army baseball team is better. No, it's not. It's the Navy. Well, the two rivals are still at it, and we'll see who is right. Thanks for bearing with me tonight. That's the end of Midway. Whew, man, I'm sweating. All right. Next week, we got some really good stuff. We're going to briefly talk about Operation Sickle Cut and the great rescue of Dunkirk. If you've seen the movie, something that all of Great Britain should be vastly proud of. Then we're going to talk about the Great Battle of Britain. And we're going to talk about Operation Torch in North Africa and how a debacle turns out to be just good enough. So anyway, if you have any questions, I'll stick around for a little bit. If not, have a great Wednesday night, and we'll see you for the grand finale next week.
D-Day.
D-Day. Well, here at school, the final one. Then we'll go.